Exercise, dear viewer. Exercise. How much do you need? What type of exercise is the best? And what are the actual benefits of exercise? So, before we get into the benefits, I have 9 listed here. Let's address the other questions. Now, when I say exercise, there are 3 types of exercise I'm thinking of. There are, of course, more, but we have strength training, we have aerobic exercise, and we have anaerobic exercise. Strength training is, lifting weights, even, push-ups will be strength training, of course, pull-ups, anything that has to do with moving something that is fairly heavy, you could say. Then we have aerobic exercise, which is, keeping your heart rate elevated over longer periods of time. So let's say you went out on a bicycle ride for 30 minutes, that would be aerobic exercise. If you go out and run a 5K, that's aerobic exercise. Just keeping your heart rate elevated. And then we have anaerobic exercise. When you exert your heart at a level where it can't keep up with the oxygen requirements, becomes anaerobic. It starts using lactic acid, and you get a lactic acid buildup. Sorry, it starts other energy processes happen that are not related to oxygen, and you get a buildup of lactic acid. That's what I'm trying to say. And an example of this would be sprinting or interval training or HIIT, high intensity interval training, as they say. So those are the forms of exercise that I'm talking about. Now, what are the benefits of each one? Surprisingly, because of our evolution and persistence hunting, so running an animal down to the ground, the benefits I have here mostly come from aerobic exercise. And of course, that's because of our evolution. We did a lot more aerobic exercise than any other form of exercise. So when I'm gonna talk about these things, you're primarily getting them from aerobic exercise, but anaerobic can also supply these. You need both, I would say. Anaerobic exercise trains your mitochondria in a different way. We'll come to that. But training your mitochondria, with maximum exertion and steady state is the optimal way to go. And strength training will increase the amount of muscle in your body, and it will lead to, you'll get stronger bones, better skeletal system, and that's also good. So with those questions answered, I could just throw this in there for those of you who would like to save money. 2 things actually. This is the first thing. You only need a floor to get the benefits of exercise. And actually, the electromagnetic frequencies and the blue light in gyms are very harmful. So the absolute best thing to do is to try to exercise outside, or if you can't, if it's minus 14 degrees like it's over here, and we have a lot of snow, so I can't run as an example, you can exercise at home. So that's it. You don't need to pay $400 every month to be healthy. And if you desire big muscles, then ask yourself why you want big muscles, because the only thing they do is they increase your caloric requirements, and thus you're stressing your digestive system more, and thus you're stressing your cells, so you're getting compromised health by bodybuilding. So try not to do that. If your body wants to stay at a certain weight, you should stay there. And that's why I've lost 5 kilos since summer, because I realized this. I was a culprit of bodybuilding. But oh well. Let's get into the benefits. So the first benefit is you get a stronger heart. And remember, When it comes to exercise, your heart is the most important thing, not your muscles. Sedentary people, according to the Nordic health recommendations, are 5 to 8 times more likely to get heart disease. So exercising really plays a big role in heart health. And just to throw this in there, because we're talking about heart disease, exercise does not replace a bad diet. You cannot fix your cells just by exercising and eating cheeseburgers on the side. It doesn't work like that. Because the cheeseburger becomes you and the exercise has separate benefits. You want good organic material to become you. Watch the Food and Nature video if you haven't been introduced to this way of thinking before. They recommend that you burn 2,000 to 4,000 calories every week for the amount of exercise that you should do. That's a fairly good guideline. I mean, people, when we look at studies, those who burn far more calories than, let's say, 1,000 calories a week get far greater benefits when it comes to preventing chronic diseases, and thus we can conclude that it is healthy to exercise a lot. Because remember, our ancestors had to move around constantly to survive. Our hunter-gatherers, that is. They had to basically walk and run all the time, and so the amount of calories they burnt was a lot. And then, of course, the number one benefit of, or when I say a stronger heart, we're primarily talking about increased oxygen uptake. So the systems in your body that deliver oxygen to your cells get a lot more efficient, and that benefits all of your cells, so to speak. And the primary benefits here when it comes to getting a stronger heart are due to aerobic exercise. So the more aerobic exercise you do, the better. Number 2, you become more beautiful. And this is due to a multitude of reasons. Number 1, if you exercise, you're naturally creating a lot of inflammation, because when your mitochondria work, they create free radicals as a byproduct, and your body has to deal with this. So what it does is it adapts its antioxidant capacity. So its natural antioxidant levels in the body go up, and therefore you'll benefit from it and you look better. Then number 2, blood sugar, when it comes to looking more beautiful, because you're at your risk of getting glycated is lower, because if you eat a meal and then work out a few hours later, that blood sugar will be used when you're exercising. And if you exercise and then you eat a meal, then that glucose will become glycogen, because you have emptied your glycogen stores. So you're less likely to glycate yourself, so damaging your cells by eating too much glucose. That's what sugar does. And naturally, glycating yourself is the best way of getting bad skin and aging. And of course, better mitochondria mean better cell health, and better cell health means less aging and better skin and all of the benefits you'd want. So by training your mitochondria, you'll look better and you'll be more healthy. Number 3, according to the Nordic health recommendations, when it comes to exercise, they have a bunch of headings of all the chronic diseases, and then they talk about how exercise prevents all of them. So, I mean, it literally prevents hypertension, diabetes, cancer, you name it, heart disease. any chronic disease you can think of will be um, your risk will be reduced of that chronic disease if you exercise. And I'll be linking the Nordic Health recommendations down below. Of course, the nutrition part is, you can be a little bit skeptical to it because they do recommend processed oils instead of butter, which is a no-no. But their exercise, the exercise part of the document is very well made. I commend them. Number 4, and this is just to get this out there, 10 to 20% of those who get cancer in Europe get it by being inactive, according to the document and a certain study made there. Now, that's a big range, so it's believable. It's 10 to 20%, it's not 10 to 12%, and it's believable because cancer is primarily a metabolic problem, and exercise is the best way of improving your mitochondrial health next to fasting. Number 5, better mental health. Why? Because if you feel bad, you probably have elevated stress hormones. And if you have elevated stress hormones, exercise is the best way of reducing them. It's the best way of getting cortisol and adrenaline out of your system. And thus, depressed people and anxious people who probably have and create a bunch of these stress hormones throughout their day will benefit a lot by exercising. Number 6, you get a bunch of cognitive benefits. Why? Antioxidants, as we mentioned previously, oxygen uptake, and a bunch of neuroprotective factors get created when you exercise, which have led us to see or observe that elderly who exercise improve their cognitive function. Or if you take a 4-week period where you do a test, a cognitive test before and after of elderly, you'll see that their cognitive performance improves. And they're generally the ones that have the most messed up bodily functions. So if it applies to elderly people, it probably applies to all ages, of course. Number 7, sleep. Now, studies do conclude that exercise does help with sleep, but we kind of don't need science to conclude this. I mean, if you're exhausted, you'll sleep better. This is something any human will tell you. And I believe it is due to doing the opposite of sleeping. Exercise is the opposite of sleeping, and therefore it will make you more exhausted. Therefore, sleeping will be much more appreciated and it will come more easily. Because you're exhausted, you're not thinking about things when you go to sleep. So that's one thing. And then number 8, a better hormonal profile. This is probably due to the reduced cortisol levels and stress hormones, which naturally raise estrogen, which is bad for both genders, not just males, and naturally also raise your testosterone, primarily by strength training. There are some adaptations which might make, if you do excessive aerobic exercise, your testosterone might go down, but that rarely happens. You have to run 2 hours every day for that to happen, I believe. And a better hormonal profile is, of course, sex drive and your hormonal profile go hand in hand. They're basically the same thing. Improved hormonal profile, improved sex drive. Improved sex drive, improved hormonal profile. So just notice that when it comes to you, and you'll be able to assess your hormonal profile. And number 9, discipline. The hunter-gatherers exercised because they needed to. You exercise because, well, even though you don't need to exercise to survive in our modern environment, you still do because you do something hard to maintain good health. It's a hard means, but to a good end. And therefore you're much more disciplined than a hunter-gatherer, we could say. Over and out for now.